I would like to apologize for everything you've seen in this video. Also, it might be quite noisy because my neighborhood just doesn't cooperate with me, so please bear with me. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Amparo, and today we are going to be talking about the synopsis. If you're a writer, you already know what a synopsis is, and you also know that it's really hard to write one. However, I don't think we should be afraid of writing a synopsis, mainly because it will help us in the long run. Whether we're querying agents or we're submitting to editors, most writers have to write a synopsis. Now, if you don't know what a synopsis is yet, you're very fortunate, but I am going to tell you a little bit about it now. Basically, a synopsis is where you write everything that happens in your novel, even if you haven't written it yet. The length of the synopsis may vary depending on what your agent or the agent that you're trying to query or the editor that you're submitting to wants. Some agents want 1-page, 2-page, 3-page synopsis, and some editors might want that same amount, or they might want a longer synopsis. Right now, I'm actually writing a synopsis for a book that is outside of the BLAZEWRATH games world. I didn't used to write synopses before I wrote books or manuscripts because I was very much a pantser, and just recently I became a plotter. So I think synopses are a great tool for people who want to discover their world prior to actually writing a single word in their manuscript. Whether an agent asks for a synopsis or not, it's a great exercise in world building, character development, and explorations of what it is that you're trying to write. If you don't know who Susan Dennard is, she is a New York Times bestselling author of the Witchland series and the Something Strange and Deadly series. I will leave a link to her books below this video. I will also be leaving a link to her 1-page synopsis post. I feel like it's super helpful, even though you are writing or want to write a longer synopsis. I think the model that she created, or the template that she created, even though it's just for 1 page, you can build upon each part or each item and then have a longer synopsis. And we're going to have a little bit of an example from my perspective, combining the items on her template. So for her post, Susan used the Star Wars A New Hope movie. She basically broke the plot down into each item for her synopsis, and I think you should check out her breakdown of that specific movie. I've chosen a different movie for this breakdown, but I think it's a wonderful way of learning how to write a synopsis, even though it's a shorter version of one, and even though it's with a film instead of a novel. But yeah, I will be using a different movie. You may or may not have heard of it. I'm guessing you have heard of it. It's this one. By the way, this is like the Borders exclusive. Rest in peace, Borders. Oh my god. A moment of silence, please. This version is pretty awesome. I don't know how you feel about Twilight personally, but I think this is a pretty awesome... Oh, my dog is coming. Hi! What's up, honey? Oh, he left. Okay, my dog is gone. I know no one asked for this, but I'm going to show you anyway. Look at this back. You have every character ever. Can we get a close-up of this? Like, look at these extra looking vampires right now. Like, they are all... I feel like I'm holding Vogue, or like a glittery version of Harper's Bazaar. I'm not sure. Just in case you're curious, can you feel the love in this DVD? I'm sure you can. All right, so now you know I will be discussing Twilight for this post. Let's get started. First part is opening image, an image setting concept that sets the stage for the story to come. The opening image of Twilight would be the following. Deep in the woods of Forks, Washington, a young girl is overheard wondering how she will die while a humanoid predator hunts deer. Of course, you can play with that intro. I feel like that beginning of that that specific scene at the beginning of the movie is pretty, how would I say, melodramatic, but it's also a great way of knowing what we can expect. We don't really know what we're expecting in terms of what kind of creature we're exposing ourselves to, but we can kind of interpret it as vampires just because we're familiar with vampires. We're not necessarily familiar with glittery vampires, but that's a completely different post altogether. The second item is the protagonist intro. Who is the main character? Give 1 to 2 descriptive words and say what he/she wants. Character intro for Twilight would be: Isabella, Bella Swan, reluctantly moves in with her father, the sheriff in a tiny town called Forks. Letting people know that even though we just saw something strange in the beginning, this is Bella's story, or we're gonna start seeing everything unfold from Bella's perspective. It's very important here to remember that even though you might have more than one narrator, I feel like you can distill it into 1 to 2 sentences as well. You can just say, you can name every narrator as long as they are very important to the story, because you can have a narrator that feels more like a secondary character and not so much a main character. Or if it's third person POV, at least choose one character that's driving the plot forward or driving the story forward. I think with Twilight it's easier because you know it's only Bella, even though we do meet Edward and we follow him a little bit, and his family a little bit. But if you're writing just one narrator, I feel like just open with who they are, something very specific about their personality and their goals. What are they trying to achieve? Number 3, inciting incident. What event, decision, change prompts the main character to take initial action? In Twilight, the inciting incident is as follows. When Bella meets Edward Cullen, the hottest guy at her new school, she's put off by his cold demeanor towards her. Then he stops a truck from squashing her with superhuman strength. If the hottest guy in school is saving my life with superhuman strength, that's pretty much the weirdest thing and the greatest thing that will happen to me, I guess. Clearly, we have a change here because Bella wasn't aware that Edward was inhumanly strong. She just thought that he was really pretty and really difficult. In terms of your story, just think of that one moment that completely changes where the story is going, because everything might be normal for your story at first, and then something puts a wrench in someone's path and completely upends their life or their beliefs, or something is completely different now. By the way, if you hear licking noises, that is obviously not me, it's my dog. Next up, we have plot point 1. What is the first turning point? What action does the MC take, or what decision does he/she make that changes the book's direction? Once he/she cross this line, there's no going back. Curious about how Edward could possess such unimaginable powers, Bella decides to investigate him further. Because yes, when you realize that something weird is happening and there's a really hot guy involved, we investigate. So I think the main difference is that in the inciting incident, you are introducing the big change, that big shift in the action, or something in the world building is different now because either there's more information or there's more information, yet it's vague at the same time, which is what happens with Bella and Edward. She doesn't really know why he's so strong and why he even felt the need to save her, since he was clearly very, very annoyed by her. But she's really curious and also kind of thirsty, but we won't talk about that here. Next up, conflicts and character encounters. Now in a new life, the MC meets new people, experiences a new life, and meets the antagonist villain. The more Bella tries to uncover Edward's secret, the more disturbing evidence keeps piling up, and the stronger her feelings for him grow. Okay, we can talk a little bit about her thirst. Since Twilight is a paranormal romance, I think it's important to also insert the fact that yes, she is trying to figure out what this boy is. Is he human? Is he a mutant? What is he? But since it is a romance, you have to also include that they're falling in love, Or in the case of Edward and Bella, they feel this incredible pull towards each other and they don't really know how to stop it. Yeah. So I would say be mindful of your genre and what is the main drive between your protagonist and anyone else, whether it's a romance or a horror or a thriller or fantasy. What exactly can we expect from this new journey that they are about to embark on? And again, you might be tempted to write more than 2 sentences here, which I think is fine. Remember, this is a starting point. You don't have to just keep it 1 page unless an agent or an editor simply wants 1 page. But if you're like me, who likes to start small and then build upon what I've already done, you can do this before you know most of the things that happen, or most of the world building details, or even all of the cast of characters. Item number 6, the midpoint. What is the middle turning point? What happens that causes the MC to make a 180-degree change in direction, change in emotion, change in anything? Again, once he/she has crossed this line, there's no going back. When Bella puts all the clues together, she finally discovers Edward's true identity. He's a vampire. Instead of running for the hills, Bella and Edward choose to explore their undeniable attraction and begin a forbidden romance that could threaten both their lives. So basically, the midpoint is when something terrible happens or something great happens, depending on what your ending is going to be. What I feel is important for you to know is that something really intense has to happen, even if it's quiet, not explosions, death, deadly plagues, aliens, monsters, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be big in the sense that someone is going to die, but it has to be big in the sense that it makes sense for your character, it makes sense for your world, and at the end, you can see clues or a pattern that was previously established in that midpoint. Again, you might be tempted to write every single thing that happens in your story because, oh my god, midpoints are so important and you really want to convey everything in that space. But just think about the most important part of that midpoint. What is the actual event that will spiral everything into oblivion? Again, since Twilight is a paranormal romance, I think it's important to mention that even though there are vampires nearby, or vampires in her town, she's falling in love with one of them, and his entire family is helping him protect her, even though, of course, we know not everyone is on board. We also know that they are willing to keep the relationship a secret, and they're willing to help Bella and Edward progress in their romance. Item number 8 is the black moment. The MC is lower than low, and he/she must fight through the blackness of his/her emotions to find the strength for the final battle. What happens here? Despite Edward's best efforts to protect her, Bella is tricked into thinking her mother is in danger and ends up meeting with the vampire who wants her blood. He bites her before Edward comes to the rescue. Here we have a mortal girl, seconds or minutes, I can't remember the timeline, but she's about to become a vampire, which is something that she's not necessarily against, but her boyfriend is. Also, that vampire venom is super painful, so even if she does want to become a vampire, she is in excruciating pain. And yeah. Item number 9, climax. What happens in the final blowout between the MC and the antagonist? Bella is on the brink of death as the vampire venom courses through her veins. A desperate Edward has to choose, let her turn or suck the venom out. He decides to keep her human. While he removes the venom, his family kills the vampire who almost turned the love of his life. Here we have an interesting climax because our main character is quite passive. She is literally not doing anything to save her own life because she is in pain. And this is where Edward really shines in the story, in the sense that, well, I couldn't stop her from getting bitten, but now I will save her life. I will get the venom out. In your story regarding this part, even if your main character isn't really capable of saving themselves, or something is stopping them from actually doing anything, there has to be a logical way of getting past that obstacle. And also, even though there are a lot of elements to that obstacle, think about the obstacle as something that is one big problem with very little sub-items that are attached to the bigger problem. When it comes to the climax, the clock is literally ticking super fast. Next up, the resolution. Does everyone live happily ever after? Yes? No? What happens to tie up all the loose ends? Bella is recovering at the hospital with a brooding Edward, who's adamant about not letting her become a vampire, but she insists that he must eventually turn her. Her mind is made up. She wants to live forever at his side. That might not seem like a sensible request to a lot of people, me included, but I feel like the important thing to remember is that Bella started out not really enjoying her life. She didn't have a purpose in her life. And then afterwards, she discovers that she just doesn't fit in because she was born as something that she doesn't want to be anymore. When thinking of your story's resolution, think of a big change in terms of how the character wants to move forward in their life. Whether it's a personal decision that they're making for themselves, or they're trying to save someone else, they're deciding this, or they're choosing this fate for the good of the world or their community or whatever it is. What is this new happily ever after for this character? Did they expect this happily ever after? Is it the happily ever after that they wanted? Or are you completely upending their expectations? And now, the last item on the one-page synopsis is, what is the final image you want to leave your reader with? Has the MC succumbed to his/her own demons, or has he built a new life? While Bella and Edward enjoy their first dance at prom, is it prom? I can't even remember anymore, but they're dancing. The lover of the vampire Edward's family killed watches them from afar. So here we have a bit of a cliffhanger in terms of the movie. I cannot remember anything about the book. I read it a long time ago. But yeah, it's basically giving you a false sense of hope in terms of where this is going. And in terms of your synopsis, you should also include this. If it has a cliffhanger, you should leave it there. Make it as obvious as you can, but don't over-explain or don't try to go into too much detail, because you'll be ruining that suspense. In terms of stories without a cliffhanger, you can just say, in contrast to that first image or that opening image where your character is doing XYZ, what are they doing at the very end of the story, and are they happy about it? If you have written your entire manuscript, then this would be an easier process for you, but if you haven't yet, I think it's worth a shot just for yourself. Don't really worry about agents or editors yet. Of course, if they are asking for one or a synopsis, then you should write one. But even if you're not a plotter, I think a synopsis will help you, a one-page synopsis will help you at least have a brief, very brief map of what to do. I'm curious to know if you've ever written a synopsis, whether it's one page or more than that. Did you like the process? Would you recommend it? Which template did you use? I know that other people use other templates, but I really, really love Susan's template, and I would recommend it until my dying day. Also, please support Susan in everything she's done, because she deserves it. Right now, for the synopsis that I'm writing, I have about 2 of these items done. I really haven't gotten as far as I would have liked by now, but I'm giving myself a break because I just finished a book, and I really just want to take my time with this, because this is not a book that's under contract. This is something that I'm writing for myself. But I do want it to be as planned as possible, as thoroughly planned as possible before I start writing more of it. Spoiler alert, I already wrote about 3.5 chapters, or I think 4 chapters, but they're terrible. They're only gonna get better once I have more information about everything in this book. I'm sure that a lot of you would have rather seen a post with another movie. I'm not sorry, this is the movie we've chosen. Get with it, vampires glitter sometimes. If you have any comments about what you use for your synopsis, or if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm also curious, do you actually enjoy writing a synopsis, or do you hate it with your entire heart? Again, this is just my process and my way of doing things. Hopefully you will find the best method for yourself. And remember that even if there are set rules or guidelines or styles that are already approved or universally liked, both in the publishing industry or as writers in the writing community, you can still adapt everything that's out there into fitting your style and your preferences as well. Don't take this as a completely rigid approach. You can always transform it into something that works better for you. And this applies to everything, not just a synopsis. I know that not a lot of us enjoy them, but even writing itself, like everything I've said right now may work for you, it may not work for you, but I'm just sharing what I prefer and what's worked for me so far. And it's okay to keep growing. It's okay to keep discovering new ways of writing your stories and building your worlds. So that's basically it for me today. It's been fun talking about Twilight. I rarely talk about Twilight anymore, but I do enjoy a good plot breakdown. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed or learned something today. And if you didn't, no apologies. At least you got some Twilight out of it. Look at that. I feel like a game show host with these cards. In what year was Edward turned into a vampire? Okay, I'm just gonna put these away. Anyway, stay healthy, stay safe, stay awesome. Bye!